In Chapter 2, you get a very basic introduction to the different parts of speech. And as you hopefully read in the syllabus, we're going to work on the sentence level improvements that you can make in your writing for the first 5 weeks, I believe, of the quarter. So this is the very basic start of that. And the reason that it's so important for you to know the parts of speech is that you can't identify writing errors if you don't understand the parts of speech and what role certain words or phrases are playing in your sentences. So that's why we have to essentially start from the very basics and build upward, because again, you can't identify problems if you don't understand what the root of that problem is. So I'm not going to go over these elements in great detail. The chapter doesn't either, and that's because the chapters that follow Chapter 2 are going to get into them much more specifically. So if things start feeling repetitious and like you are just getting the same information over and over, don't get frustrated. Just realize that it's good for this repetition to keep coming at you so that you remember and that you get a really, really good grasp of what the parts of speech are, the different errors, and everything else that we're going to cover in the next number of chapters. So again, if it starts getting old, that's okay. That means that you hopefully understand it, because grammar's not very, very easy to pick up on, I'm afraid. So what are the parts of speech? They are the function that a word plays in a sentence. And how do you know what function that word is playing? It depends upon the context. So you have to be able to look at the sentence, understand how the different components are working together. And again, it's complex. It's very complex because you might see a preposition, but the word surrounding that preposition and where that preposition is in the sentence completely changes the function of that preposition. It might still be a preposition, but it could also be something else too. So you have to be really careful, and you can't identify certain things without knowing what function a word is playing. Okay, and hopefully that'll make more sense as we get going. For example, I don't want to leave you hanging or confused. So say you look at a noun and you're trying to identify the subject of a sentence. So the first thing you want to do when trying to identify the subject is to look at all the different nouns that you see in the sentence. Then you look at which noun is actually performing the action or the verb of the sentence. That then becomes your subject. Again, this is why the parts of speech are so important. If you don't know what a noun is, you can't find the subject that way. So again, these functions are dependent upon context and what they're doing and what role they're playing. The parts of speech are also the very basic unit of a sentence. So once you understand these different little parts of speech, the verbs and the nouns and the prepositions and all that, you can start to understand phrases and clauses and objects and subjects and predicates and all that stuff, and then you'll be able to catch grammatical errors from that. So again, if it starts to becoming repetitious, that's good. So let's start with nouns. Nouns, person, place, or thing, or an idea. Don't forget about the idea. So when we're dealing with the grammar stuff, I'll try to provide examples. So the cat on the couch is taking a nap and is very happy. Those are all nouns. Cat is a thing, couch is a thing, nap is a thing, and happy is an idea. You have common nouns, proper nouns, and collective nouns. So all of the nouns in this sentence are common. Nothing really special about them. Proper nouns are places or specific people, and collective nouns just identify just more than one thing. It's a collective word. So it's a group. Sorry, lost my train of thought. All right, so those are nouns: person, place, or thing, or idea. Simple. Noun phrases. Tricky thing with nouns is that a noun is not limited to one single word. And you're going to see what other different parts of speech are also phrases. So it's pretty much an entire group of words that functions as a noun. So running marathons is my favorite hobby. Running marathons is a complete noun, even though there are two words. Because marathons, I guess that could be a hobby, but what's a marathon? You don't just marathon, you run a marathon. And so then running becomes a part of that noun phrase. So running marathons is a complete noun by itself. Okay, so it's two words that are functioning as one part of speech. So again, this is why context is so important when identifying the parts of speech. Let's see here. Okay, something the book I don't believe mentions is the it-they test. So if you can replace it, a noun phrase, with it or they, it's probably a noun phrase. So if you were to take out running marathons and just use the pronoun it, the sentence would read, "It is my favorite hobby." Does that make sense? Yes, it does. So running marathons is a noun phrase. Okay, does that make sense? So if you're confused as to what is included in a noun phrase, because remember, a noun phrase includes all of the words that are necessary to form an actual noun. Running, well, actually, running is my favorite hobby, would make sense. But in this case, because marathons is here, running marathons is the complete noun, and it all can be replaced by it. Does that make sense? It's a good test to use, even for nouns. You use a pronoun to replace it because pronouns replace nouns. Ta-da! But it's especially helpful with phrases, noun phrases, so that you make sure you get all of the information that's included in that phrase. So it's a good test to use if you can remember to use it. So, as I just said, pronouns are used in place of a noun. So instead of repeating somebody's name over and over again, or a noun over and over again, you can just simply use a pronoun to replace it. So instead of saying my sister, my sister, my sister, you can say she and me instead of I, because I believe would be considered a proper noun. Okay, never mind. I'm sitting here contradicting myself. This is the joy of grammar. So I is a personal pronoun. I guess that replaces your name, I guess is what that would be. So technically I should be highlighted in red. All right, so the different categories you have are personal, indefinite, demonstrative, and relative. I don't care if you know the categories or not. Don't get hung up on the tiny, tiny details of this stuff. If you know it's a pronoun, that's good enough for me. You know that those is relatively general. So instead of saying the apples are on the counter, whatever, it still works. I don't care if you know the categories. I just want you to know what a pronoun is. Okay, that goes for everything in grammar. If you're getting hung up on the tiny, tiny, intricate details, it's not going to do you any good. Grammar has a million rules and a bazillion contradictions to each rule. So don't get hung up on this stuff. I'm just presenting it for you so that you can see examples of what to be looking for, because pronouns are not always just she. It can be any of these. And this is not even close to a exhaustive list. The book has a lot more in it. Adjectives, they're describing words. They describe or modify. When you hear the word modify, it just means it's describing or placing additional information with. So adjectives modify nouns and pronouns. So 6 is how many ducks. Fluffy is what kind of ducks swam in the cold water. Don't forget the is an article. It is an adjective because it describes whether it's just a general a or a specific the. So what kind of water? Cold water. Again, just a day, any day. But what kind of day? It's a blustery winter day. Adjective phrases, just like with nouns, you can have an adjective phrase where multiple words are standing in for one specific part of speech. So, wondering where her parents were, the girl wandered around the zoo. This whole phrase is modifying the girl. It's explaining what she's doing. Verbs. That's what's happening. Ta-da! It's an action word. It's an action or state of being. You've got, I'm not even going to go into the different type of verbs because you're going to cover them in chapter 4. Yes, chapter 4. Just know that they're the action word. It's what's happening in a sentence. So I went to the store where I bought a book I have wanted a long time. So you can have multiple verbs in one sentence. It's totally fine. Let's see here. Tense. Do be aware of tense. There's past, present, and future. But again, you're going to get more in depth with that in chapter 4. So again, verbs are the action. Yay! Adverbs. Modified verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. Adverbs are most easily identified by the ly ending. Not always, but very, very common. So when my ex-boyfriend showed up, I ran very quickly to the other side of the store immediately. So it describes when I ran and how I ran. So I ran immediately and I ran very quickly. They can also be phrases as well. So do watch out for more than just a single word adverb. Prepositions. I thought this was a great example. Everybody knows over the river and through the woods. So you go over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house. It shows the relationship between an object and how it relates to the rest of the sentence. So an object is either a noun or a pronoun. You can also have prepositional phrases too. So the bunny test. You must be thinking, what on earth could the bunny test be? Well, the bunny test will help you determine whether or not it's a preposition. It is probably a preposition if it's something a bunny can do to a log. Can a bunny go over a log? Yes, it can. Can it go through a log? Sure, if it's hollow. Can it go to a log? Can it go under a log? Can it go around a log? Can it be of a log? Absolutely. So that's seemingly silly, but you'd be surprised how often I think about a bunny and a log. I like animals, so thinking about a bunny is no real big deal for me, but it's anything that someone or something can do to another thing. And you can sing Over the River and Through the Woods to yourself if you like as well. Whatever works for you. There are quite a few grammar tests. I'm trying to bring out some of them. I'll try to continue to do so and to remember to do so, because there are lots of tests you can use to find out parts of speech and what things are doing. Conjunctions, they're the connecting words and phrases. You've got the simple conjunctions that are the fanboys. So these are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Those are pretty common. Sometimes you have pairs of conjunctions like either or, and then subordinating. Woohoo! Again, don't get hung up on the tiny details. But because is a conjunction, I believe it's a subordinating. And then and is just a simple because it's connecting moan and groan. Interjections. Woo! Yay! Yeah. I mean, I try to interject and be exciting. Oh, well. It just evokes emotion or surprise, but it's really not something you're going to use in academic writing, so it's good to know, but they're super simple. Just a stop, or hey, or wow, or yowza. All of those are interjections. But again, not something you're really going to be working with in an academic context. All right, so some helpful hints about all this stuff. We kind of blew through it, but don't worry, you're going to be covering it all again anyway. This is just a really good starting point. We're starting slow, starting with the most important, smaller details, and then we'll build on that in the chapters to come. So if you want some help in how to keep all of these apart and you've never seen Schoolhouse Rock, go to YouTube,